casting problem? Ano ba yung framing mo? So the kinds of questions that you ask will also determine the choice of your methodology and approach.
Thank you very much,
And you can
Doc
do
Malu.
both quanti and quali methods. to
Yes,
add, yes.
or mixed methods.
Mixed methods.
So before we close, probably I would like to ask our presenters a final synthesis question. So given the foresight that you have developed, ube, for example, poultry pathways, the insects, and of course the circular economy, where do you see the strongest opportunities for convergence? In other words, how can these futures reinforce each other to build a more resilient, sustainable, and future-ready Philippine food system? Probably just one sentence each for each one of you. We can start with Sir Ian.
There's no one single answer. We complement each other.
Okay.
For a future-ready Philippines, it depends on the worldview or the lens that you are looking at. So everything is effective depending on which worldview you are looking at.
Ms. Amora?
I think it's...
Anyora.
Anyora, yes. So I think it will align with the sustainable consumption and production in the sense that most farmers have a lot of crop wastage. But really, to be able to move forward with the desired future, it's about collaboration and looking at the same lens, same direction, not disaggregated, not silo thinking. So I guess that's about it.
Thank you very much.
So for me, just to preface, I agree with what was mentioned by one of our colleagues here, that the social and the human aspect is just equally important as the technical. So we need to converge the technical side with the human, social, cultural side. That's one integration. The other integration would be from policy to program and monitoring at the bottom. It should go downwards. And in terms of systems, the system of the MRFs, business, accounting, and policy implementation and enforcement. Without that, we will have gaps.
Whole system approach.
It's a whole system approach.
Yes, Doc
And
Cynthia?
governance, whole society approach.
Yes, that's true. Doc Cynthia?
Ako, I still have high hopes siguro for state university and colleges. I believe that it is an avenue still where young minds are fresh and they have a lot of bright ideas. And all these food systems can be better studied in that place because in other countries they have identified for state universities or universities, they have identified the strength of the university and they are focused and the government would allocate funds depending on the strength of the university. And I believe that honor and excellence is still alive in our state universities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our presenters and to all those who joined in our conversation this afternoon. Your ideas and questions highlight the importance of reimagining food systems, not only as an agriculture or economic challenge, but as a future's challenges that require collective intelligence, foresight, and sustained collaboration. With that, we formally close our open forum for Session 1, Reimagining the Philippine Food Systems and Consumption Futures. I will now turn the floor to our Master of Ceremony.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our distinguished research fellows and our moderator, of course, Dr. Agustin, for a very timely discussion on food systems and consumption culture. I saw firsthand how everyone was really engaged throughout the entire session because the topics were really close to our stomach. So at this point, we would like to request our speakers and moderator to remain on stage for a photo opportunity. We would also like to call on Dean Lizan Perante Calina to join them on stage. At this point, we would like to show our appreciation to our speakers and moderator for session 1. Allow us to read the certificate or the citation. The plaque of appreciation is given to for being a research fellow during HINABI 2025, an ensemble for weaving sustainable futures, conducted by the Development Academy of the Philippines, Graduate School of Public and Development Management, given this 10th day of December 2025 at the Marco Polo Hotel, Philippines. Signed by Lizan E. Parente Calina, DPA, the Dean of the Graduate School of Public and Development Management, and Dr. Leocadio S. Sebastian, the Acting President and CEO of the Development Academy of the Philippines. The plaque is given to Dr. This plaque of appreciation is given to Dr. Maria Cynthia Rondina de la Cruz. A warm round of applause, please. The plaque of appreciation, the same plaque of appreciation is given to Maria Wilvena A. Anyora. Thank you, ma'am. The same plaque of appreciation is given to Ian Junlord C. Invernio. And lastly, the same plaque of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Maria Lourdes Rebulida. We would also like to award the plaque of appreciation to our moderator, Dr. Nicasio Angelo Agustin. Everyone, let's give our speakers and our moderator for the session 1 a warm round of applause.
May we request our moderator and speakers and Dean Lizan to be in the middle for a group photo opportunity. Okay, thank you very much to our moderator and to our resource persons for that very, again, insightful and informative session on sustainable food production. So we've really learned a lot on the futures of ube, the futures of poultry, the futures of sustainable consumption, and of course, the novel idea of the futures of insects. All right? At this point, we will now take a short afternoon break. We will be allowing the people in the event rather to have a 5-minute break, and we will continue our session at around 3:20 p.m. So you can now have coffee, drink water, network, and use the restrooms. We will see you at 3:20 p.m. Thank you very much. to building a Philippines ready for multiple possible futures. This brings us to HINABI Session 2, Sustainable Governance and Transformative Institutions for a Futures-Ready Philippines.
This session features our research fellows presenting their studies on how foresight and futures thinking can shape public policy, institutional change, and governance innovation. It gathers research that assesses the preparedness of Philippine institutions to meet shifting societal demands through adaptive systems, participatory governance, and evidence-based decision-making.
To open this exchange with clarity and keep our discussion anchored on what matters most, we are very honored to have one of the guiding minds of DAP-GSPDM's research endeavors with us. Our moderator, Dr. Maria Oliva Z. Domingo, is a former president of Kalayaan College. In 2016, she assumed the presidency of Kalayaan College after retiring as professor at the University of the Philippines National College of Public Administration and Governance.
She continues to teach graduate courses at the UP NCPUG, and until today, she handles courses in human resource management and development, leadership, human behavior in organizations, organization studies, resource generation, and voluntary sector management. Everyone, a warm round of applause as we welcome Dr. Maria Oliva Domingo.
Thank you very much, Ken and Andy. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat and welcome to this final session of HINABI. The last but certainly not the least session. In futures research, those who have listened to me will know that one of the things we stress is that change is inevitable and the futures will always remain uncertain. And a perspective like this should drive us to prepare for and to pursue possible pathways of possible futures, no? So in this session, we will hear from 4 researchers who have integrated foresight and futures thinking in their work in public administration and policy making. For our first speaker, I would like to introduce to you someone with an expertise in policy research and development, public corporate governance, institutional analysis, organizational assessment, strategic planning, and knowledge management, and quality and productivity assessment. He's a former president of the Development Academy of the Philippines and former alternate director for the Philippines of the Asian Productivity Organization, or the APO, who has held professional posts in the University of the Philippines and the Ateneo School of Government. He is currently a senior fellow of the DAP-GSPDM and a member of the faculty of DAP's Public Management Development Program and a member of the DAP Academic Council. His relevant publications on these fields are found across peer-reviewed journals such as the Handbook of Philippine Public Administration in Southeast Asia, the Philippine Political Science Journal, and the Austrian Journal of Economic Reform, among many others. Furthermore, he is a recipient of multiple awards, notably the UP Diliman Centennial Professorial Chair in 2013 and 2014, the Individual Award for Administrative Reforms from the Network of Asia-Pacific Schools and Institutes of Governance in Delhi, India, and the International Publication Award from the University of the Philippines across various years. He graduated with a Doctor of Philosophy and a Master of Arts in Public Policy from the University of Pennsylvania, as well as a Master of Urban and Regional Planning and a Bachelor of Science in Geodetic Engineering from the University of the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our first presenter for this session, Dr. Eduardo Gonzalez, who has chosen to present from this platform. Dr. Ed?
Thank you, Doc Lily, for the long introduction. I just hope that, my presentation for today would be shorter than that. Anyway, there it is. Okay. Good day, everyone. No? So this presentation is a futures-oriented study that explores how the Philippines can meaningfully advance SDG 13, climate action, by integrating the IPCC's shared socioeconomic pathways, or SSPs. Alam niyo yung IPCC, di ba? So that's the international panel that's in charge of, measuring how much we are degrading our own planet. Anyway, the central idea here is simple but very urgent. Our climate future is not predetermined. By using a futures thinking lens, visioning, customization, backcasting, we can reimagine policies, strategies, and governance approaches to steer the Philippines toward the best scenario, the sustainability pathway. Okay, so the presentation draws heavily from 4 domains, adaptation and resilience, resource decoupling, localized development, and climate governance. Okay, the challenge for the Philippines begins with a fundamental injustice. We contribute the least to global emissions, yet we face the harshest climate impacts. However, the deeper issue is not only physical vulnerability, it is the knowledge policy gap. Current strategies often emphasize technology or infrastructure, but not the social, economic, and cultural shifts that true climate action requires. At the same time, global climate science seldom translates into our local realities. Communities, LGUs, agencies struggle to interpret climate data and convert it into local policy choices. That is why SDG 13, if it is to be meaningful, must be rooted in climate justice, recognizing differentiated needs, especially of women, the poor, and marginalized groups who shoulder most of the burdens of climate change. Our approach combines 3 methodologies: visioning, customization, and backcasting. I think you're already familiar with those terms. They've been used over and over from this morning up to this afternoon. We begin, of course, with visioning, and then we go to customization, and then finally backcasting, which is the reverse logic. Okay. The shared socioeconomic pathways, or what we call the SSPs, are the global narratives used by the IPCC to explore global potential futures. They combine socioeconomic trends, kasi dati, ang ginagawa ng IPCC, puro technical. Kasi they're concerned with climate change. Sea level rise, the deforestation, things like those. Pero ngayon, ang ginawa nila, kasi they were criticized for it, ano? Sabi nila, okay, we will include population, technology, consumption, governance, no? And that is what is called now the SSPs, ano? So, in this study that we did, ano, SSP1 is our preferred trajectory, no? Ayan, makikita nyo rito, maraming, ayan, ano? It's from SSP1 to SSP5, ano? Kaya lang dito, ang kukunin lang natin, we will just evaluate apart from SSP1, which is the preferred scenario, no? We will just evaluate SSP2 and SSP5, not as options, but as spoilers, no? Okay? We need to avoid those. Okay? Now, against these narratives, we evaluate 4 domains essential for the Philippines. Customizing capacity and resilience, resource decoupling, that means reducing resource use, localized and urban development or decentralization, and then, of course, climate governance, which is about policy execution. Okay. So there you have it, we call this the SSP cube, So taking the green road, our sustainability scenario, SSP1, middle of the road, our efficient development scenario, and then the fossil fuel development or business as usual scenario, which is our baseline. Now, if you will notice also, we are only focusing on between today and 2030 because the SDGs are supposed to end in 2030. Okay, but of course, that's not really the end of things, okay? It's just that, I'm sure the United Nations will develop a new, set of requirements for us, to deal with climate change. Okay. When we assess the Philippines across the 4 domains, the results are quite sobering. Our present performance is insufficient across 4 domains. And unfortunately, the trajectory remains insufficient up to 2030, unless drastic changes are made. So we have pockets of progress naman. We have policies. We're good on policies. Local initiatives, some of our LGUs are there, but they are not enough to move the country to the sustainability scenario. Okay? Halimbawa lang, between adaptation and mitigation lags behind. Okay? So if we want to stay on track, then we will have to avoid squarely SSP2, which is very slow, incremental and inadequate, or worse, SSP5, business as usual. We will be facing collapse or disaster. Okay, SSP1, what does it offer? It offers a future where the Philippines embraces sustainability as its development model. In the scenario, renewable energy becomes affordable and widespread. Malayo pa tayo doon. Land use becomes climate smart and biodiversity becomes very protective and inclusive. Communities practice agroforestry, organic farming, regenerative agriculture, mentioned already by some of our speakers. Education systems teach climate literacy. Social inequalities are reduced and public services like health, safety nets, housing are strengthened to anticipate climate shocks. But the SSP1 is not only environmental, it is also social. It should include community participation, okay? And it must align our own national development with our global climate commitments. We have commitments, made. Ang tawag dun sa, the venue for that, is really yung mga COP. No? We are now into COP26, if I'm not mistaken. No? Okay, and then, of course, we need to follow our own recommendations dun sa Paris Accord. Okay. Now, what are the spoilers? SSP2 and SSP5, Okay, yung SSP2, middle of the road, meron naman tayong nagagawa, kung yan ang susundin natin, partial reforms, small pilot projects, gradual adoption, but we remain vulnerable, Coastal communities will be at risk, agriculture will be heavily stressed, and our flooding will only it will certainly put more damage on our agenda. Now, yung SSB5, this is the fossil fuel development. It's actually what we are following today. It prioritizes rapid economic gains, but at what price? At the cost of health, biodiversity, long-term stability, and then of course, because of it, inequalities deepen. Mas maraming mahirap ngayon. Tingnan nyo na lang yung SWS surveys on who are poor. Umaabot ng mga 60% actually. Of course, it's a very subjective kind of survey, and we also need to rely on the Philippine Statistics Agency for a more objective kind. Pero those two complement each other. Okay. So anyway, these scenarios, scenarios that we need to avoid, are really warnings. Okay. They help us identify the patterns, the policies, the mindsets, yung tinatawag nila kanina na mga behavioral aspects, that we must avoid, complacency, reliance on fossil, fuel, poor governance, and growth that sacrifices the environment. Okay. Now, moving toward SSP1 between 2025 and 2030, medyo drastic na yon kasi 5 taon na lang, 4 na taon na lang. Okay? But it must move on 3 pillars. Political will and commitment. Okay? Urgency. Kailangan. Pero wala tayo, mga renewable energy deployment, urban planning reforms, and then even the enforcement of existing environmental laws, is very, very unsteady. Okay. Second, yung just transition. So we cannot leave behind workers in fossil-dependent industries, vulnerable communities or informal sectors. Okay, so equitable, aspects, would be central to a preferred scenario. Then yung third would be partnerships and multi-level consultation. Okay, climate action must be co-created with LGUs, indigenous communities, civil society, the private sector, youth groups. So 2030 is only 5 years away, and we cannot have the luxury of gradualism. Okay? Okay, finally, no? To conclude, SSP1, yung preferred scenario, is both globally preferred and locally necessary. But reaching it rather, requires confronting a hard truth. Our current trajectory is insufficient and will remain very poor without radical change. And of course, the Philippines must enhance its unconditional NDC target. Taon-taon po ay dapat nagsasubmit tayo ng progress report kasi nagbigay tayo ng ating commitment doon sa Paris Accord. Pero ang nangyayari sa atin ngayon ay, we submit for compliance. Pero lagi nating nilalagay na kondisyon ay, we cannot do this without international funding. Parang we are beggars, no? Parang sinasabi that we cannot do anything without, the promised, may promise naman talaga, promised resources coming from the developed economies. Kaya lang, when you come to think of it, kahit na siguro mga 20% lang ng mga, flood control projects, which went to corruption, kahit na 20% lang nilagay sa climate change, mas okay na sana tayo. Pero hindi nangyari, Okay? And we beg for international funding, okay? Kaya talagang mahirap, So in other words, kung wala tayong gagawing very drastic, we will be locking ourselves, to SSP 2 or SSP 5, middle of the road or business as usual. And nothing will happen, okay? So we need to embrace urgency, strengthen governance, mobilize communities so that we can transform our trajectory from, slow to fast, Okay. So, kaya nga, at the end, we need to make sure that SSP1 is followed very, honestly, walang corruption. And then, of course, very closely, Okay. So we need a sustainable, equitable, and climate-resilient Philippines. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Doc Ed, for enlightening us about how the future might unfold in the area of climate action and warning us that we have a choice. We don't do anything and face a future where we will be doomed, or choose to act and act fast if we want climate action to have a better future in the country. And thank you for providing us with the suggestions on how we can attain a preferred future. Now let us turn to our second speaker. The second speaker is an assistant professor at the University of the Philippines National College of Public Administration, where he teaches in a specialty program where we have very few specialists. That's the field of public fiscal administration and public administration and the economic system. His works are in the areas of development and governance, which include serving as consultant for the ADB in providing capacity building program on the formulation of medium-term fiscal framework for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, or the BARM. He has done several studies, particularly the financing of state universities and colleges for the Philippine Institute of Development Studies, or the PIDS. He was also part of the teams that drafted the National Policy on Regulatory Management, and Subchapter 2.2, Improving Education and Lifelong Learning of the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. Mr. Flores is a fellow of Social Watch Philippines, where he has conducted various studies on the Philippine public financial management system. He has served as a capacity development consultant for different organizations, including the Department of Social Welfare and Development, the UNDP Philippines, and the Philippine Science High School, among others. He began his career, actually, this is new information, he's coming home because he started his career at the Development Academy of the Philippines, something I also learned only today. So he was technical staff way back in 2005. And over the years, he has continued working with the Academy in various capacities. Let us all give now our attention to Professor Herisadel Flores, who's going to present his study on the futures of the National Service Training Program, or the NSDP. Professor Flores is already there.
Thank you very much, Doc Lily, for that, for those very kind words. And good afternoon, everyone. Our topic this afternoon, I suppose, is very much aligned with the theme of our program, which is HINABI, or to weave, or woven fabric, which signifies intertwined relationships, an important characteristic of our traditional Filipino communities. Social cohesion, which describes these strong ties, is important in facilitating collective action that could lead to positive transformations, such as the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. With social cohesion, greater trust and empathy for one another becomes possible in society. Two important values that are indispensable in achieving inclusive growth and development. Sadly, through centuries of colonization and political turmoil, the level of trust had gone down in our country. And modernity has intensified individualism to the point of normalizing apathy. The COVID-19 pandemic has probably worsened the situation by making us enamored with our devices and social media, a tool that was supposed to connect and unite us, but has sometimes proliferated misinformation and polarization instead. If we are to reverse this trend, it is important to start with our youth and our education system, particularly civic education and engagement. And one such opportunity is the National Service Training Program, or NSTP. It is therefore crucial to examine what extent NSTP is able to perform this function, assess its relevance at present and the foreseeable future, and investigate its prospects and place in our preferred futures. It is in view of this that I and my co-authors, Mr. Lester Balmatero and Ms. Mai Jewel Sagum, have come up with the idea of this futures thinking study. With your indulgence, we would like to present our proposed study, which admittedly is a work in progress. We therefore would value your inputs greatly in the spirit of knowledge co-creation. Today, I am with my co-author, Ms. Mai Sagum, who actually went through NSTP. Unlike me, I was to experience NSTP. We had ROTC during those days, to discuss with you the details of our proposed study. Let me now therefore turn over the mic to Ms. Sagum for the rest of the presentation.
So good afternoon, everyone. So on behalf of Mr. Flores and Mr. Balmatero, I am honored to present the research project, Reimagining the Futures of the National Service Training Program from Mandatory Course to a Catalyst for Meaningful Social Change. So for the plan of talk for this afternoon, so first we'll go over the rationale of the study, the research gaps and future directions, study objectives, purpose and scope, challenges in the NSTP implementation, integrating futures thinking into NSTP, framework and methodology, data analysis, and lastly, of course, the conclusion. So the National Service Training Program was established in the Philippines through Republic Act 9163 in 2001 to integrate civic welfare, literacy, and military preparedness. During the time of its passage, concerns were raised in the ROTC program, so as a response, the RA 9163 was implemented to provide students with other options of tracks such as the Civic Welfare Training Service or the CWTS and the Literary Training Service or the LTS. So as such, it has engaged students and communities in various social community development activities, including disaster preparedness, volunteerism, and leadership skills. However, the effectiveness of the program has been debated, as it has been pointed out to lack academic weight. Students in many institutions often treat it as a mere compliance rather than a transformative experience. Moreover, its relevance was further challenged by the recent efforts to reinstate the mandatory ROTC. So the rationale of the study centers on the argument that the NSTP, when properly implemented, provides a meaningful avenue for civic engagement. Further, integrating futures thinking into NSTP can be a vital catalyst for stronger civic consciousness, patriotism, and community engagement, ultimately leading to social change. So for the identified research gaps, while there are various studies regarding the NSTP's implementation, there is limited research on the program's long-term impact on civic participation. There's also little study done that integrates futures thinking methodologies to analyze the NSTP's adaptability amidst fast-paced changes in society. So as a response to these research gaps, the study aims to use foresight and futures thinking to identify drivers of change and recommend strategies for the adoption of the preferred future for the NSTP among other alternative scenarios explored. So with that, the objectives of the study are: one, to examine the relevance, challenges, and prospects for the NSTP across selected higher education institutions to determine its impact on student civic engagement; two, identify the factors that affect the possible futures and the scenarios of these different futures; and lastly, propose future-proof strategies to achieve the preferred future for the NSTP. So for its purpose and scope, it aims to assess the program's effectiveness, challenges, and future prospects for the next 15 years, which is in line with the country's development plan for Ambition Natin 2040. Using a futures thinking approach, it also explores NSTP's adaptability to evolving social needs and propose strategies for its enhancement. As such, the study identifies the trends, signals, and emerging issues that affect the futures of the NSTP. It also lastly employs FFT methods such as deep system sense-making and co-creation of futures with the goals of providing evidence-based recommendations. So these are the identified challenges in NSTP. First, lack of institutional support from school administrators that often lead to inadequate resources, logistical difficulties. Funding is also a problem because the NSTP requires budget allocation for honoraria, outreach programs, and materials. Bureaucratic red tape is also another challenge that hampers smooth coordination with partner agencies, communities, along with the higher education institutions. And instructor-related challenges also pose a problem in the program's lack of academic weight. This includes lack of qualified instructors and a heavy workload for teachers. On the student side, students have shown low interest and motivation in NSTP activities as it is mostly taken out of compliance. Additionally, the schedule of NSTP sessions also often is in conflict with the coursework schedule of students, which leads to reduction in participation. So logistical difficulties in its implementation manifest in the lack of training facilities, equipment, adequate spaces, and materials for effective training. There are also concerns raised in transportation and safety of the students when doing community immersions. So with all these challenges enumerated, there are now inconsistencies in the implementation of the program and how students and even institutions experience the program's quality and effectiveness. And lastly, the lack of systemic assessment and evaluation mechanisms adds an extra layer of difficulty in enhancing the program, given that there's no data available to measure NSTP's impact on students and communities. So with that, this study aims to integrate futures thinking into NSTP, since there is a growing call to modernize the NSTP beyond its traditional service learning model. As such, integrating futures thinking into the NSTP enables institutions to anticipate emerging challenges and design proactive solutions. FFT can also help develop scenario-based strategies for the program's future direction, especially in the context of the 21st century. Other countries were also able to incorporate social entrepreneurship, sustainability, and interdisciplinary approaches into their civic education. The Philippines can utilize these models as a guide to position NSTP as a transformative force for youth empowerment and sustainable nation building. So, grounded into international best practices in anticipatory governance and educational futures, the framework is structured around 6 interlinked foresight dimensions implemented across 4 analytical phases. Foresight dimensions include horizon scanning and steep analysis, causal layered analysis, scenario archetypes, backcasting from preferred futures, futures wheel and systems mapping, SDG and policy alignment. Now for the phase methodologies, phase 1 includes diagnostic and trend mapping, which includes document review and policy analysis of NSTP law, reform proposals, and curriculum content. It also includes horizon scanning and steep analysis involving desk review and expert interviews. Phase 2 includes focuses on the CLA workshop and thematic FGD, where the primary goal is to converse and gather insights with diverse stakeholders. Phase 3 aims to conduct scenario development through participatory workshops and futures wheel and systems mapping that provides a visualization of system interconnections, impact, cluster, and transformation pathways, all anchored on identified key drivers of change. And lastly, phase 4 involves backcasting sessions that identify actions in pedagogy, governance, and capacity building. It also includes Delphi-style validation to assess the feasibility, risks, and coherence of policy options. And finally, policy and institutional mapping, which determines the reform enablers, bottlenecks, and leverage points for the NSTP redesign. For data analysis, the study primarily employs qualitative data analysis, which includes thematic coding, which is for transcripts from interviews, FGDs, and workshops to, of course, extract recurring themes, pattern matching and causal analysis to explore systemic influences on NSTP implementation, narrative analysis, particularly within the CLA framework, to uncover the deep stories and metaphors that shape institutional and public understandings of the NSTP. After which, the findings are triangulated across methods, data sources, and stakeholder groups to ensure analytical rigor and strengthen the validity of insights. This integrated foresight-informed methodology allows the study to critically assess NSTP's current alignment with its civic education mandate while offering a robust foundation for its future transformation. So, for conclusion, the NSTP carries a lot of unexplored potential when it comes to strengthening civic consciousness, patriotism, and community engagement. As we continue to live in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, our policies must be able to keep up with the changes that are yet to come. By integrating futures thinking into the study of NSTP, it is not just improving the current status of the program, but also exploring the various possible futures for the NSTP to ensure its sustainable relevance. Through this study, we can start reimagining the futures of the National Service Training Program from a mandatory course to a catalyst for meaningful change. So that is all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Del and Mai, for reminding us that we need to prepare our citizens for the future through civic education, and we are looking forward to the completion of this research. From climate action to citizen training, we now turn our eyes on local governance. Our presenters include Luigi Pilarta, who has a master's degree in public administration, currently serving as the chief of the Local Government Capacity Development Division of the DILG National Capital Region. He has over 11 years of dedicated service and has played a pivotal role in advancing capacity building programs and strengthening institutional development across local governments in Metro Manila. He spearheads initiatives on international benchmarking, enabling local government units to learn from global best practices and adopt innovative approaches that enhance governance and service delivery. His leadership has been instrumental in promoting effective, adaptive, and forward-looking local government systems, ensuring that institutions remain resilient and responsive to the evolving needs of communities. Through his work, Luigi continues to champion the vision of empowering local governments to drive sustainable development and foster inclusive growth. Alongside Luigi is his co-author, Mardalina Dumaong Acoba, who holds a master's degree in community development and is currently serving as the acting chief of the Local Government Monitoring and Evaluation Division at the DILG National Capital Region. Also, with 11 years of dedicated service, she has been at the forefront of strengthening performance monitoring systems and advancing evidence-based approaches in local governance. Her team continues to develop robust evaluation frameworks, responsive monitoring mechanisms that drive the continuous improvement of local government operations. Through her work, MARDA continues to promote a culture of excellence and learning in governance, empowering local governments to deliver more inclusive and sustainable development outcomes. Please join me in welcoming Luigi Pilarta with co-author Marda Dumaong Acoba for their ongoing research on the futures of local disaster governance.
Thank you very much, Doc Lily, for the introduction. So today, we'll share a futures-oriented study, all right, on how local governments in the National Capital Region can govern disaster risk differently, using scenarios and strategic pathways to move from reactive crisis management toward more resilient, anticipatory LGU systems. This presentation starts from a simple observation. Disaster risk in NCR is no longer just a hazard problem, but rather is already a governance problem. It combines several futures tools such as causal layered analysis, stakeholder mapping and power, STEB and PDL, key factor identification, scenario building, and backcasting to explore alternative futures for LGUs in the Metro Manila. Across these methods, three decisive drivers emerge. The first, climate-driven multi-hazard escalation. Second, fragmented multi-level governance. And third, political will and prioritization of DRRM. Our presentation will conclude with strategic pathways that LGUs and national government can take to steer NCR toward a more collaborative, anticipatory, and justice-oriented disaster governance system by 2050. As an introduction, of course, the Philippines is routinely ranked among the world's most disaster-exposed countries, and nowhere is this pressure more concentrated than here in Metro Manila. The region's 13 million residents live at the intersection of coastal subsidence, seismic threats from the West Valley Fault, chronic flooding, heat extremes, and growing infrastructural strain. These overlapping hazards create what recent scholarship describes as a polycrisis, an interlocking system where climate variability, land subsidence, urban density, inequality, and outdated infrastructure reinforce one another over time. Our national frameworks, such as the Local Government Code of 1991, RA 10121, and the Sendai-aligned DRRM architecture, are among the most advanced in Southeast Asia. However, implementation remains uneven. Wealthier LGUs have institutionalized DRRM early, but resource-constrained cities still operate with limited staff. Governmental coordination remains fragmented, producing data gaps, ambiguous mandates, and inconsistent decision-making. More deeply, what the analysis reveals is a foresight deficit. LGUs prepare for just familiar floods or earthquakes and seldom for emerging and compound risks such as heatwave brownout interactions, reclamation-induced flooding, subsidence sea level rise, or a West Valley Fault event coinciding with coastal hazards. This study responds to that gap by applying futures thinking to NCR's disaster governance landscape and by exploring how scenarios and strategic pathways can support more adaptive, resilient LGUs by 2050. This study reframes disaster governance in NCR from being a technical or institutional challenge to a foresight challenge. And by integrating futures tools, the study offers structured way to anticipate emerging risks and reorient planning down to the local level. It also aligns this shift with the SDGs, particularly resilient cities, that's 11, climate adaptation, 13, and multi-stakeholder partnerships, 17. Our research questions are, what plausible futures await NCR's disaster governance? How can foresight approaches strengthen LGU institutional and community resilience? And what strategic pathways can guide LGUs toward adaptive futures-ready systems? So these questions, how we answer these questions will be discussed further in the methodology. So for the related literature of this study, Philippine disaster governance rests on strong laws, but actual practice remains uneven across LGUs. Planning instruments such as the CLUPs, CDPs, LCCAPs, and CDRIMPs often operate in silos, and fragmentation among OCD, MMDA, and LGUs, and other government institutions weakens coordination and long-term resilience. Performance assessment systems such as the Gawad Kalasag and the SGLG, or the Seal of Good Local Governance, improve transparency, but unfortunately it reinforce a compliance mindset. DRRM funds remain underutilized and monitoring systems are weak. Tools such as GeoRisk Philippines exist, but uptake depends on staffing and technical capacity. So all of this were coded through horizon scanning and thematic context analysis. I'm sorry. So for the next group of the RRL, all NCR LGUs have the RRM offices, but their institutional depth varies widely. It depends on the resource of the LGU. And despite shared flood basins and seismic risks, coordination here in the metro remains limited. Partnerships are just disaster triggered. Community resilience also depends on social cohesion, trusted communication, and routine drills. While public education has expanded, implementation is inconsistent and persistent inequality, especially in informal settlements, creates compounded vulnerabilities. Capacity building remains uneven, with LGUs meeting compliance requirements but lacking strategic flexibility. And for global frameworks, these now call for anticipatory governance. Tools like CLA, scenario planning, and backcasting help institutions understand deep drivers of risk. Network foresight strengthens collaboration across science, policy, and communities. So this literature reveals a core paradox: a strong set of laws, but a reactive operational culture. Fragmented systems, uneven capacities, and short-term incentives sustain a future's deficit. Few studies examine how LGUs can practically use foresight, creating the gap this study addresses. So for our methodology, we first used a qualitative descriptive foresight design that is grounded in strategic foresight tools. On the data side, we did a structured desk review of the RRM laws, local plans, and toolkits, and of course, reports from relevant government agencies. We also complemented this with focused group discussions with the RRM officers from selected NCR LGUs to surface actual governance culture, their everyday constraints, and perceptions of future risk. So these materials were coded through horizon scanning and thematic content analysis that's supported by MaxQDA 2024 to extract patterns, weak signals, and emerging issues that later fed into the foresight tools. For our framework, we have first, among the 4 phases, the framing phase, wherein we used CLA to unpack NCR's disaster governance, from the visible litany of floods and drills, down to the systematic causes, dominant worldviews, and the deeper myths of disaster resilience. For the second phase, we have scanning and sense-making, combined stakeholder mapping with a STEB and PDL, scan of social, technological, economic, political, and environmental trends. For the third phase, the futuring and visioning phase, which translates these drivers into 4 2050 scenario narratives in NCR. And lastly, for the backcasting, we took the preferred 2050 scenario and worked backwards with the 5 and 10-year blocks from 2050 back to 2025, aligned again with the Sendai framework and SDG 11, 13, and 17. So this framework lets us move from diagnosing gaps to imagining and then sequencing concrete pathways for future-ready local disaster governance. Next. This is the entirety of our CLA. And next we go to litany. At the surface level, the litany in NCR reflects a city living in a cycle of recurring loss. Flooding is now a constant hazard, heat has become the new normal, and fires rise well beyond the summer season. These disruptions compound with aging drainage, power failures during storms, and mobility paralysis when heavy rainfall collides with traffic choke points. The transformed litany offers a very different picture, however. Multi-hazard monitoring becomes a daily governance function. Next, for the systems, beneath the visible hazard lies a fragmented system where coordination is uneven and inconsistent across NCR. We can see here the transformed CLA, the transformed system envisions a metropolitan culture capable of unified command and predictive planning. For the worldview, which is more important, Metro Manila's risk culture is shaped by familiar narratives that disasters are normal, that bahala na is a coping strategy, and that preparedness is a shared responsibility only after a hazard hits. So in the transformed worldview, we reframe this as as the risk being governable, systems-based, and equity-driven. Next slide. Yeah, worldview. And then for the next slide, for the last of the CLA, the myth. The deepest layer captures the metaphors that silently govern behavior. Today, Metro Manila is imagined as isang malaking dagat where cities are drowning and are stranded. People ask, sino ang tutulong sa amin because they feel orphaned by fragmented systems. Bahala now continues as a fatalistic surrender, while the big one and tsunami linger as silent, inevitable fate. In the transformed mythos, Metro Manila becomes a woven web, interconnected, planned, and anticipatory. So for the rest of the methodology that we have administered, let me call on the co-author of this study, Sir Luigi D.C. Pilarta.
Slide 17. Pleasant afternoon to everyone. The stakeholders map shows how sorry, it has to be open pala. Sorry. All right. This stakeholders map show, next slide please. All right. How disaster governance in Metro Manila is shaped not by one institution, but by the entire constellation of actors whose mandates, incentives, and vulnerabilities really align despite facing the same hazards. At the center are the local chief executives whose political decisions determine whether DRR becomes anticipatory and long-term or remains reactive and short-term. DRM offices carry the operational burden but are stretched thin, and their professionalization is a decisive turning point for NCR's future resilience. Barangays act as first-mile responders, yet their limited resources create micro-risks that accumulate into metro-wide crisis. Surrounding them are national agencies and scientific institutions whose data, directives, and technical support shape the entire scenario space, but coordination gaps between them often delay action. On MMDA, infrastructure agencies and utilities sit at critical nodes because their decisions determine whether flooding, power outages, and mobility breakdowns cascade across the region. Stakeholder 3, complementing these are the CSOs, NGOs, faith-based groups, and volunteer networks who provide the social capital, trust, and reach that formal institutions often lack. And at the base of the system are communities and vulnerable groups, not passive beneficiaries, but co-producers of risk and safety whose behavior ultimately defines disaster outcomes. Mapping these actors clarifies both the architecture of fragmentation and the coalitions needed to move NCR from reactive crisis response toward anticipatory metropolitan-scale resilience. Using the Stephen P. Dale lens, we looked at disaster risk in NCR not as a single problem, but as an interfacing system of drivers. Socially, Metro Manila's risk is concentrated where poverty, informal housing, and unequal protection for the elderly, PWDs, children, and migrants converge. Bayanihan is still strong, but it coexists with volunteer fatigue and a culture of relief dependence amplified by misinformation on social media. Technologically, some LGUs now operate advanced command centers, while others rely on a siren and a group chat. Data exists in many islands, Pag-asa, PHIVOX, DPWH, MMDA, LGUs, but are rarely stitched into one NCR-wide actionable picture. Economically and in the business domain, large cities can invest in equipment and training. Smaller LGUs improvise. DRM funds are often underused or redirected toward highly visible response, while developments continue to push both malls and informal settlers into floodplains, and coastal belts. On the natural resources and environmental slide, subsidence, sea level rise, clogged rivers, and reclamation projects are locking in long-term flood and heat risk that no amount of sandbags can fully offset. Politically, coordination remains fragmented and highly dependent on personalities and electoral cycles. Demographic pressure, international dependencies, and overlapping legal mandates further tighten the system. In this tool, it shows us a stacked polycrisis landscape, but also the levers for change. Interoperable risk information, climate risk-informed budgeting, nature-based solutions, protected DRRM careers, and institutional reforms. These are the ingredients we use in the next step. Identifying the key factors that truly shape NCR's disaster futures and building our scenarios around them. For the key factor identification, we scored each driver using impact, uncertainty, and relevance. The single most powerful driver, with a total score of 14, is climate-driven multi-hazard escalation. Ito yung bagyong mas malakas, cloudburst na parang buhos gripo, heat waves plus sea level rise and subsidence. As climate volatility increases, lahat ng ibang kahinaan, drainage, housing, lifelines, and automatically ay lumalala. So this factor becomes the gravitational center of NCR disaster future. The next two factors, both at 13, are fragmented multi-level governance and political will and patronage. Kahit gaano kaganda ang science or equipment, kung hindi nakikisa ang national agencies, MMDA, cities at barangays, dam releases, and flood projects turn into multi-city failures. At the same time, political behavior decides whether DRRM funds to go to long-term mitigation or sa one-time, big-time relief efforts. In short, climate creates the pressure, governance and politics decide whether that pressure becomes catastrophe or adaptation. Below the top 3, we cluster of the 12, 11, 10 scores that explain how risk is distributed. Capacity and spatial inequality mean rich LGUs can buy pumps and ICT, while high risk and low income cities and barangays improvise with volunteers in the same hazard basin. As densities increase in riverside, coastal and subsiding zones, every failure affects more people in less time. Finally, everyday resilience pressures, burnout DRRM staff, precarious households, and MSMEs misinformation and an under-leveraged private sector act as background noise that can tip the system either toward collective learning or repeated crises. These factors together become the building blocks for the 4 scenarios and the 2050 preferred future in the next part of the presentation. Let me walk you through the 4 alternative futures generated from top 3 key factors. In no change, we have climate-driven multi-hazard escalation. The risks still intensify, while science is ignored or selectively used. Fragmental multi-level governance, where systems stay analog, siloed and opaque, and basin coordination fails. Political will, patronage, and DRM prioritization, relief politics dominate still. DRM remains visibility-driven and reactive. It becomes the default governance mode. In marginal change, NCR improves but only in patches. But elsewhere, governance fragmentation and patronage remain the default. Hazard maps are acknowledged, but don't consistently shape zoning or building approvals. Reclamation becomes inconsistent. Some projects stall, others push through, but there is still no metro, hydrological, or seismic framework. Third is the adaptive change, where NCR makes serious sustained upgrades without fully transforming its development model. A long-delayed sunset review of RA 10121 clarifies coordination, links DRRM with climate and development planning, and strengthens the role of DRMOs. But land reclamation and speculative development largely continue. Vulnerable communities still occupy compressed hazard zones, though with better warnings and somewhere fairer aid. By 2050, NCR is more coordinated and more data-driven, adopted but not transformed. And for our preferred future, next slide, please. In our preferred 2050 future, the Metro Manila is no longer improvising its way through even typhoon, flood, or earthquake. Disaster governance has become anticipatory, rule-bound, and co-governed. LGUs work inside a harmonized national metropolitan framework where DRRM law, climate policy, land use, building codes, and long-ignored West Valley Fault and Manila Trench scenarios finally talk to each other. The first decisive driver, climate-driven multi-hazard escalation, becomes the core design constraint of development. Science does not sit in PDFs, it drives transformation. A metro-wide multi-hazard digital twin and interoperable dashboards can guide dam releases, evacuation, and land use. Second, fragmented multi-level governance is replaced by a polycentric, data-driven coordination. And third, political will and patronage are reshaped by transparency and legal safeguards. DRM funds are ring-fenced, tracked on open digital platforms, and audited with community participation. And for our last tool, for backcasting turns the preferred 2050 vision into a practical pathway. To reach a Metro Manila that is coordinated, anticipatory, science-driven, and socially just, the region must move through three major phases. We begin the short term from 2025 to 2030, where the essential scaffolding is built. There is a phase of legal realignment and institutional clarity. By medium term, 2031 to 2040, the region begins to scale. The amended RA 10121 is enacted. DRRM departments become the LGU standard. In the long term, 2041 to 2050, NCR reaches maturity, lifelines are automated and resilient, basin level and bay-wide governance operates seamlessly, and DRRM and social protection are fully integrated. Through this staged pathway, the region moves from today's fragmented reality toward a future literate, justice-oriented, and climate-attuned Metro Manila. In conclusion, Metro Manila's disaster future will be defined not by the hazards around us, but by how our institutions choose to govern risks. Across the CLA, stakeholders map, and Stephen Pidel, one truth is clear. Our vulnerabilities are systemic, and only systemic reform can fix them. The preferred future is coordinated, depoliticized, data-driven, and community-centered. The region now stands at a turning point. Either remain fragmented or build a metropolitan system that anticipates, learns, and protects. The path to 2050 is a collective choice. If we commit to shared standards, shared data, and shared responsibility, the National Capital Region that emerges will not just survive disaster. It will shape its future with clarity, equity, and courage. Maraming salamat po and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Luigi and Marda, for broadening our perspective and explaining to us the complexity of disaster governance in a metropolitan setting. Now we have a better understanding why it is difficult to move beyond our present strategies, and you have identified to us those key drivers that lead to different possible futures and challenge us. We want a better future, then we make the right choice. Now we go to our final speaker, who is a distinguished leader in health policy, hospital administration, and healthcare quality management. He was appointed in July of 2025 as Director 4 of the Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau at the Department of Health. Prior to this, he led the DOH Administrative Service and the Research and Performance Management Division of the Health Facility Development Bureau, demonstrating his commitment to strengthening health systems and governance. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Statistics and Research degree from the West Visayas State University and completed substantial coursework toward an MS in Public Health, major in Biostatistics at the UP College of Public Health. He is currently pursuing a master's in hospital administration at the University of Santo Tomas Graduate School, further solidifying his expertise in healthcare management. His professional influence extends beyond government service. He is a professorial lecturer at the Visayas State University's College of Medicine and University Medical Center, shaping future healthcare professionals. He is a certified hospital administrator, a fellow and faculty of the Philippine Society for Quality in Healthcare, and serves as Chancellor of the Asia Pacific Health Information Management International Federation. He is also associate member of the National Research Council of the Philippines and a national advisor for the Philippine Association of Health Records and Information Management Officers. With his extensive experience in policy development, research, and healthcare quality, our speaker exemplifies leadership and innovation in advancing healthcare systems in the Philippines and the Asia Pacific region. Joining us via Zoom, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Mr. Roderick Napulan, and his presentation delving into the process of translating data into actionable policies.
Especially from the Development Academy of the Philippines. So I'm Director Rod Napulan of the Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau of the Department of Health. Together with me here are my technical staff, Ms. Jelvin Aguirre and Joyce Ong. Today I'll be sharing how the Department of Health strengthens policymaking through the strategic use of data and research. I will also walk you through 3 real examples where evidence directly shape policies, showing how data is not just information, but a driver of reform. This presentation has 4 parts. First, we will revisit why evidence matters in policymaking, especially in the health sector. Second, I'll share 3 case studies from the Department of Health, each showing how data translated into concrete policy actions. Third, we'll reflect on common lessons across these cases. And finally, I will share how we can sustain momentum moving forward. Evidence use is not optional for the Department of Health. It is mandated. From our national health research laws, the Department of Health being a core implementing agency of the Philippines National Health Research System. To our mandate as an agency, as provided by the Executive Order 102, series of 1999. And through the Universal Health Care, which tasks the Department of Health to integrate evidence in every stage of the policy cycle. Our role includes agenda setting, research management, and building the ecosystem that supports evidence use. So let us look into our case studies and move to the first one on how health accounts data guides financing reforms. Especially this is one of the priority of our president, President Bongbong Marcos, and our Secretary Teodoro Herbosa. When we talk about the Philippine National Health Accounts, or the PNHA, we are really trying to answer 3 simple but important questions about the health financing function of our country's health system. So what revenues are being collected for health? Who manages these funds? And where the money is actually spent? As such, the PNHA or the Philippine National Health Account functions as a policy tool for us in the Department of Health. It tracks how our health financing system performs, allows us to benchmark which countries with similar economic contexts, and gives us the evidence to support decisions on budgeting, planning, allocations of resources, and of course, program design. The data from our PNHA help us set and monitor national targets, especially on financial protection. For instance, tracking the share of household out-of-pocket in the total current health spending tells us whether families are actually feeling the impact of our reforms. When the share of household out-of-pocket or the OOP starts to decline, for instance, it is a sign that the PhilHealth or social health insurance benefits, public investments, as well as the local government spending are really working together the way for the achievement of the universal health care. Our major policies like the Universal Healthcare Act and our annual budget strategies rely heavily on the PNHA evidence. Both the Department of Health and PhilHealth draw from this data to refine benefit packages and to identify funding gaps and plan how to direct public resources more strategically across the system. It also keeps our reforms grounded in reality. One of the biggest impacts of the PNHA has been on financing reforms. Insights from these accounts help shape policies. For instance, sin taxes on alcohol, tobacco, and sugar sweetened beverages to increase the fiscal space available for the health sector, and in return, increase overall public health spending. We also reorienting the primary health care by mandating PhilHealth to develop and implement a more comprehensive primary care packages, including coverage for out-of-patient drugs, like we are now shown in the slides, and PhilHealth is also expanding their YACA program. PNHS also tells us where people actually seek care. These patterns inform our service delivery reforms, like strengthening primary care, improving benefit design, and ensuring the right mix of providers. When we see that too much spending is concentrated in hospitals, it signals that the need to invest more in primary and community-based services. One good example of this plan is the Philippine National Health Facility Plan that provides a macro directives on which facilities shall be really improved down to our regional hospitals. To make these insights accessible, we work together with the Philippine Statistics Authority to package health accounts into infographics, policy dossiers, and public reports. The goal is to support policymakers, advocates, or even legislators, and of course our ordinary citizens in understanding where health resources go and why these patterns really matters. Our annual dissemination forums with PSA also plays a key part of this effort. In the past 2 years, we brought together agencies, researchers, and development partners to unpack the numbers and talk about what they need and what they mean for policy and for the UHC implementation. These sessions will also help ensure that evidence leads to concrete action. This partnership with PSA is central to building a strong evidence ecosystem for DOH when it comes to health policy making. PSA maintains the technical rigor of the accounts, while we at the DOH translates the results into policies, budgets, and reforms. It is a continuous cycle of generating data by using it and, of course, improving it over time. While our current PNHA already provides valuable insights, we know that policymakers need more detailed and actionable evidence. That's why we are closely working together with the PSA to improve further the Philippine National Health Accounts. Especially, we endeavor to do the following: cross-tabulation of PNHA tables, to look into the different patterns across providers and service provided to the people. Improving primary health care expenditure, like tracking them to help us understand whether investments are truly shifting toward primary and preventive care, as of course mandated by the UHC. Developing and sub-national accounts to give LGUs the localized data they need for smarter local planning and budgeting. All of these improvements aim to strengthen decision support across sector. And we hope that in this example, we can really work together, collaborate to come up with a more evidence-based and policy-informed efforts, like what we did in the PSA. Our second case is on building a reform and strengthening the health policy and systems research ecosystem. As mentioned previously, the Bureau serves as the lead national agency for health research by setting priority research agenda for the sector, providing research funding, and in particular for health policy and systems research, building the capacity of the sector to do research and the use of evidence produced from it. Despite these efforts, there are challenges, limited capacity in the health policy and systems research, like lack of sustainable platforms for collaborations at the national and regional levels, and missed opportunities to maximize resources across the health system. And to address these gaps is the key to strengthening Department of Health's role in guiding health research. With these challenges in mind, the DOH anticipated in a co-creation endeavor with the Third International Results for Development Alliance for Improving Health Outcomes, or IFO, called the Forum for Advancing Better, HPSRIS, or the Health Policy and Systems Research Institutions, building capacity for the HPSR, especially on the organizational level, would require granular elements such as how we can measure capacity and what are the dimensions when we say we can currently building capacities at the organizational perspective. So this example is more of collaboration with other stakeholders, not only with the government. So now, why is the framework assessing HPSRI capacity essential? It is useful guide to map institutional actors in the network, identify attributes and functions, contributing to the interactions, processes, and bottlenecks, develop capacity building interventions that will strengthen attributes and address the bottleneck, and come up with a more strengthened organizational and network. This slide presents the framework we have developed for assessing the capacities of health policy and systems research institutions in the country. It consists of 8 attributes, which are organized into 4 distinct domains. These domains collectively contribute to community health and well-being. We must acknowledge the current state of the HPSRIs in the country. As it stands, not all institutions possesses the full range of these 8 attributes. So with this framework, we can provide a pathway for institutions to either establish or strengthen the necessary attributes within their institutions, with the potential to not only accessing capacity, but also providing a roadmap capacity building. So this one is the research conducted by the team, the HPDPB, that translate later on into policy. So the objectives are straightforward. The network was envisioned to provide platform to engage all actors in the ecosystem in order to increase synergy and collaboration in the country and globally through the HPSR partners. This also provide enabling mechanisms through network and of course, integration of the institutions in the health research and development consortia, and to systematically implement assessment of institutional capacities in the country. So these are just some of the member institutions and activities conducted by the network. The regional counterparts are currently doing their respective pilot implementation as shown in the slide, especially starting with the Caraga region. While this one shows the initial planning and coordination for the launching of regional network in Davao, with a long-term goal to have a stronger HPSR ecosystem, as it's being highlighted in the research paper as shown a while ago. The last case is the more of operational concern, especially for the employees' health access. So the DOH provided by the National Research Council of the Philippines a grant to assess how government employees access to primary care services as well as to their immediate family members. It gave us a system-wide view of workplace health gaps. So as presented in this slide, how important the achieving the primary health care services as mandated by the Universal Health Care Act. Next, please. So the part of the research product is to come up with a model for the health and wellness centers in the government facilities to ensure that the necessary services will be really bring nearer to the employees as well as to their immediate family members. So likewise, part of the study is coming up with a costing of services and facilities, so that this would be part of the costing and planning efforts of the DOH to ensure that the accessibility to services will really reach to the employees and immediate family members. So these are some of the policy recommendations of the study. And I think this is a good study that justify the wellness breaks and wellness leave in the government, and to really ensure that the necessary support to the employees will be provided, especially their health needs and well-being. So another way that this research leads towards a more of a policies and legislative measures, like on the amendment of several laws and existing policies of the CSC and of the Department of Health. Another product of this research translated into the policy is the, if you're aware, no, of the medical allowance. So this is one of the justification of the DBM to the Office of the President to grant us the 7,000. This is part of our recommendations that to strengthen the delivery of services to the government employees. So, another one is a policy of the Department of Health to expand the healthcare benefits of DOH employees and officials as mandated by the Magna Carta of Public Health Workers. So this study was also one of the evidence to inform the Secretary and to the Executive Committee of the DOH to approve the proposed policy. So what we are learning from this experience? Across all cases, we see three themes: routine data drives systematic reform, strong partnerships improve evidence use, and the co-creation ensures policy relevance. These principles strengthen evidence-based governance. Building on these themes, the next step is to address key needs: strengthening data governance, expanding networks and capacity, and to institutionalizing evidence use. And maybe focusing on this area will help ensure that the data and research consistently inform our policy and practice. So this framework illustrates how we approach evidence generation and use at the Department of Health through the Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau. At the center is evidence generation and synthesis, which informs all aspects of health governance. Around it, we see 4 key areas: policy agenda setting, policy and program development, budget and plan development, and performance monitoring and evaluation. By ensuring that evidence flows systematically through these 4 areas, we can make health policies more relevant, programs more effective, and our resource allocation more efficient. Ultimately, we can really improve our health outcomes. And sustaining momentum requires consistently investments in research and data systems, anticipating emerging health challenges, foresight, both at the sectoral and operational levels, strengthening feedback loops, and ensuring alignment with our longer-term strategic vision for future-ready policy implementation. Maraming salamat po, and thank you for your continued support in strengthening evidence-based governance. Together, we can build a health system that is data-driven, future-oriented, and responsive to the needs of every Filipino. Thank you po, and maraming salamat.
And we'd like to request that you remain online for the next part, which is the open forum. We have heard 4 speakers speak to us on different topics, from climate action to metropolitan disaster management to health and civic education. Now we're opening the floor. Please make your questions direct, brief, and introduce yourself, the institution you're coming from. The floor is now open for your questions. Yes, Dr. Azanza, okay. Maybe first, Dr. Azanza, before you start your question, we would like to request our presenters to please go up the stage so that the audience can see you and remember the questions they had in mind while you were speaking. Sige.
So in the interest of time, can I start? Yes. Congratulations for the report, the presentations. I'd like to ask the presenters concerning the NCR. And my question is something like this. You have presented the radical change scenario for NCR. And I'd like to know whether in that scenario, you would consider removing those man-made structures along the coast or the waterways, so that you will have really a radical change and you could have a nature-based solution as what has been presented in the morning. So just like what they did in the Yangtze River, wherein they really remove those that would consider movement of the water through the waterways, and that would also prevent disasters occurring like from tsunami and storm surge and many other things. Thank you.
I guess the question is directed to Luigi and Marla. Yes, please answer.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that very significant input. We'd really consider it because, of course, by 2050 or in the radical change should have behavioral changes in the communities and as well support from the government in prioritizing human resettlement. Thank you.
It's also, the department also is working on partner organizations on nature-based solutions. In fact, we had one of our orientations before online orientation was the discussion on nature-based solutions, ma'am. We'll definitely include it in our research.
So yes, those man-made structures will be part of that pathways, no, towards the future. Okay, do we have any other questions from the floor? Anybody wants to raise any question on any of the topics discussed this afternoon? While you are contemplating that, oh yes sir, yes sir.
Good afternoon po sa ating lahat. From Pangasinan State University po, with my students from the graduate school, the School of Advanced Studies. Tumayo po kayo para at least ma-recognize kayo. Yan. We are 24 from PSU. So here is our question. How could there be a balance between technological innovations, those you have suggested, with ethical and cultural considerations, particularly in the context of modernization, which may conflict with our culture and traditions?
And to whom are you directing your question, sir?
Anyone among them.
Okay.
Thank you
Anyone
po.
among you? The question is, how do we marry the seemingly polarized concerns about technological advancement and the preservation of our culture and heritage, particularly our the ethical considerations? Okay, so any one of you?
I think I'll be to give my response, then my other colleagues can provide their responses as well. I believe our institutions would have a big role to play with regard to guiding how we make use of social media and other kinds of technology to be able to make sure that we are able to maintain ethical use of these tools and instruments, and also to use these things to be able to promote positive transformations. Our institutions provide incentives on how to behave in society. And I think if these are well crafted, if the government would provide the leadership for us to be able to make sure that these institutions will be used for good, I think that's one way to be able to make sure that they will continue to be used for such. But of course, it's very important the role of education in enculturation and molding our youth, and most importantly, to be able to make sure that our intentions, our relationships with our fellow citizens would be, again, marked by, of course, empathy, trust, and other values that we really would like to promote as a society.
Okay, anyone from the presenters who would like to add to that?
So I'd just like to add po to what Sir Del said. When it comes to ethical considerations, I think it's very important that when we consider technological advancement, especially in something that involves culture, we conduct relevant stakeholder analysis, or even conduct a discussion with them, essentially including them in our step-by-step procedure when developing something for our society, because ultimately development doesn't come when other sectors, especially marginalized sectors, are left behind. So ultimately the way we could include them in our plans is to involve them in the making of the plans and ultimately co-creating a development that is shared by everyone po.
Director Napulan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Yes. We at the DOH, we really practice the use of ethics clearance. So we have the institutionalized ethics review board. It's mandated by the UHC also, and likewise, we would like also to inform everyone that our office is also the lead secretariat on the Public Health Ethics Committee. So to look into the different conflict of interest, and one of its mandate is to ensure that the proper ethics practice is adhered by the researchers or even by the innovators.
The problems regarding our the changes we'd like to introduce in communities face resistance from our communities because of their local culture. So when there is a conflict between technology and culture, how do you usually address that at the DILG?
DILG has always been in a strategic position in influencing our communities. However, in terms of the kind of environment that we are in the National Capital Region, we have barangays who are so advanced, while there are also barangays who are somehow at the marginalized sector, no? Yung bumubuo po sa mga constituent. Everything is good, but it should be in moderation in terms of applying technology. So what we do po in DILG NCR, we tailor fit our tools depending on the communities that we serve. If, for example, we are in barangays of Barangay Ayala Alabang, there's a different approach. Barangays of Tondo Manila, there's a different approach. While it may be good to have at least a one-size-fits-all methodology in rolling out our projects and our activities in DILG NCR, at the end of the day, we should strike a balance between ensure that our vision is directly communicated to them, depending on regardless of the means, as long as we secure that the message is communicated to our communities.
So, sir, from Pangasinan State University, the way to address the conflict or clash between technology and culture are multifaceted. You can do it through institutional mandates. You can do it through mechanisms like an ethics committee or stakeholder consultations, or developing strategies that are customized towards the communities that are being served. So we are not lacking in strategies when we encounter conflicts of this nature. Okay? Anyone else who wants to add to that? I have a question submitted here. And it says that, well, I commend the considerations of the research team in terms of disaster management and response. I noticed, though, that much of the consideration has been placed on physical hazards like fire, floods, earthquakes, and the like. Have you considered health-related disasters, for example, in the pandemic, outbreaks, and the like, that may also be part and parcel when physical disasters occur? For example, COVID-19. So I think this could be the case of the paper of Luigi, as well as we will ask Director Napulan later. So did you include health issues?
We'll have to delve into the public service continuity plan of our local government units and even the national government agencies to get and input this consideration po from the nagbigay ng questions. We'll definitely make sure, ma'am, to explore on these health-related disasters. No? Then again, we think the nag-input po, and we'll definitely include it in our research, as disaster is not only limited to, again, natural disaster, but also health-related ones. We'll explore it. That's something that our LDRMOs was not able to raise with us, but that's a very important consideration, ma'am.
Okay. So may we ask Director Napulan his views about that? Health-related disasters. Do you have research on that to strengthen policymaking for evidence-based policymaking?
Yeah, this is part of the medium-term research and innovation agenda of the Department of Health, to look into the how to become more resilient in terms of our health systems. And I would like also to highlight that in the last health sector meeting of the DOH, we also introduced the planning framework where we institutionalize the um, plans, continuity plans, like for instance mentioned by our colleague from the researcher a while ago, to ensure that from our long-term to medium-term to operational plans of the DOH, we ensure that the possible health problems or issues later on will be part of the contingency plan of the Department of Health. Likewise, to ensure that proper transitioning towards a normal aspect will be considered during the planning. And we have a bureau under the Department of Health who is also in charge on the health emergency management, wherein several research projects will also be proposed by next year to ensure that we become more responsive, resilient health systems.
Thank you very much. We're running short of time, so we're making the last. Dr. Ed. Yes, Dr. Ed.
Okay. Well, kasi you mentioned the pandemic, and I think it's a good illustration because, during the COVID-19, we were so focused on the physical. In other words, how to contain the disease, how to make sure that, those infected are isolated and hospitalized and given proper treatment. But we never, or rather, we only sporadically, focused on, let us say, the trauma, the psychological impact of the pandemic itself, was not given much attention. And even today, quite a number of people are still, trying to cope with that, the psychological part that we are not able to deal with. In fact, maski nga yung physical part, we're not really very successful in that, well, because it was the first time that it happened, Maybe that's one reason. But then, yung ating mga ginawa, those measures, that we adopted, we're not really cross-cutting, involving only, well, as you said, only the physical part, and not really, and even the social part, because inequity was really, something that we also needed to address then, but we did not do much about that.
So I think we are giving more ideas to Director Napulan to do research on. We need to do research on the other effects of health issues, such as the example of Dr. Ed, where we have not really done extensive research on the psychological effects, especially among families who lost members of their family to the disease, as well as those who lost their businesses, who lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic. So, Director Napulan, you have your job cut out for you. There are more issues you need to do research on if we are to influence public policy with evidence. So, unless there is another question from the floor, in the rest of time, let me just wrap up this session by saying we have been very much enlightened from a variety of perspectives and reminded how important it is to look forward into the future long before it happens so that we can start preparing for them today. As Luigi said at the end of his presentation, we can shape the future, and it's a choice we must make, and we can only do that if we can imagine how the futures might turn out to be, And that is the contribution of strategic foresight and futures thinking, which the Development Academy of the Philippines, particularly the Graduate School of Public and Development Management, has been trying to democratize for the past 5 years. We have gone from Batanes to Tawi-Tawi to share our researches, but also to develop capacity among our state universities and colleges, local government units, and other partner institutions on how to do strategic foresight and futures thinking. And Luigi, that paper was part of, well, he is a graduate of our certificate course in foresight and futures thinking. We are opening batch 15 very soon. And batch 16 is Luigi's batch. That's a DILG reserve for the DILG. And we welcome all of you if you're interested to learn more about how to do strategic foresight and futures thinking. Come and enroll in our courses. And I hope this afternoon you were able to realize that strategic foresight and futures research are very different from conventional and traditional research. They are worlds apart. Even the tools that we use are very different. So if you want to learn so we can have a better future, welcome to the DAP Graduate School of Public and Development Management. And we'd like to thank you all for actively participating in this session. And we'd like to thank our presenters for their contribution in knowledge co-creation and knowledge sharing. Maraming salamat po and Hiraya Manuel.
Thank you very much to our distinguished research fellows and to our moderator, Dr. Lily Domingo, for the very rich and relevant conversation on the crucial role of foresight and strategic thinking towards a futures-ready bureaucracy. We would like to request our speakers and moderators to remain on stage for the photo opportunity and for the awarding of the plaques of appreciation. Allow me to read the citation of the plaque of appreciation. The Development Academy of the Philippines, Graduate School of Public and Development Management. The plaque of appreciation is given to for being a resource person during the HINABI 2025, an ensemble weaving sustainable futures, conducted by the Academy's Graduate School of Public and Development Management, given this 10th day of December 2025 at the Marco Polo Hotel, Ortigas, Manila, Philippines. So this plaque is given to Dr. Eduardo T. Gonzalez. A round of applause. The same plaque is given to Professor Herisa Del Flores and also a token of appreciation to Ms. Mai Sagum. Prof. Del and Ms. Mai, you can take the center stage. The same plaque is given to Mr. Luigi D.C. Pelarta and his co-presenter, Ms. Marda Alina Dumaong Acoba. The same plaque is also given to Director Roderick M. Napulan, who is joining us via Zoom. So hopefully we can show Director in the Zoom. And congratulations, Director, and thank you very much. At the same time, we would like to award a plaque of appreciation to Dr. Lily Domingo for being our spectacular moderator for this session. Okay, so now we'd like to request our speakers and our co-presenters via Zoom and on-site to be on the center stage for our photo opportunity.
Truly, we are very grateful for the perspective shared by our experts and for the way they widened our imagination of what effective and adaptive governance can look like for the Philippines. Everyone, let us put our hands together again for our session 2 speakers and our moderator.
We have now reached the final moments of today's colloquium, and we do so with a deep sense of gratitude for the ideas exchanged, the futures imagined, and the shared commitment to the public value that has animated every session.
What we have built throughout the day is more than a sequence of presentations. It is a community of thought and practice, one that we hope will continue beyond this hall and into the work we return to tomorrow. With that, let's give all of us in the room a round of applause for your attention, for your participation, and even the simple act of showing up and the willingness to learn and to engage. Now, I would like everyone to turn your attention to the back of your ID. There, you will see QR codes. It may be for a raffle draw, but it's not. It's for our evaluation form.
Okay, so we also have it flashed here in the screen. Please accomplish the evaluation form as this will be the basis of your certificate of attendance. Once accomplished, you may claim your raffle prize, your certificate at the registration booth. In addition, be connected with DAP-GSPDM by following our Facebook page at DAP Graduate School of Public and Development Management. Stay tuned for more announcements of our newly launched knowledge products and programs.
And now, as the day's formal conversations draw to a close, we move into an evening of fellowship, an opportunity to celebrate the people behind the work, to reconnect, and to continue our conversation in a more relaxed and convivial space. Before we move forward with the rest of our program, let's take a meaningful pause to look back at the journey we've shared this year. 2025 has been full of milestones that strengthened DAP-GSPDM's commitment to public service, from deeper learning engagements to stronger partnerships to pushing forward futures-ready and evidence-driven governance.
So now, we invite everyone to turn your attention to the screen and together relive these moments from a year to remember.
In 2025, the Graduate School of Public and Development Management continued its mission of catalyzing transformative change in the Philippine public sector, guided by its values of Dangal, Galing, and Tatag. GSPDM advanced public service through innovative programs, strategic partnerships, and knowledge creation. GSPDM introduced groundbreaking academic programs to address emerging needs in governance and development. The Master of Public Management major in Social Protection and Welfare Systems was approved by the Academic Council and DAP Board of Trustees, a program designed to strengthen the nation's social safety nets. A new Master of Public Management major in Statistics Management was developed in partnership with the Philippine Statistics Authority to strengthen data governance capabilities. The Certificate of Public Management program was launched in partnership with the Foreign Service Institute, equipping diplomats with governance excellence competencies. Executive courses continue to strengthen capacity in health governance with the Strategic Health Communication Governance course empowering DOH professionals across the region. In partnership with the Philippine Air Force Officers School, the Executive Course in Public Management Batch 8 graduated 66 student officers, including 3 international military students. The Decalogue Governance Lecture Series remained a platform for high-level policy discussions, bringing together thought leaders, policymakers, and practitioners. Discussions brought critical conversations on Philippine territorial defense and the nation's self-reliant defense posture, featuring Dr. Chester Cabalza and AFP representatives. International Women's Month was commemorated through discussions on sustaining the Magna Carta of Women with speakers from PhilWen, UN Women Philippines, and the University of the Philippines. Food sustainability took center stage in April's session, addressing the stakeholder convergence in food security, nutrition, and agricultural development. May's lecture explored open government and citizen participation, featuring Dr. Brian McHarg from Appalachian State University and the United States Embassy. Subsequent sessions tackled barangay amalgamation in April and June, exploring fiscal reforms and innovative governance models. GSPDM's research compendium on sustainable development goals and futures thinking was cascaded to local government units, academic institutions, and national agencies. Knowledge products were formally turned over to Keep Martyrs, including DILG Calabarzon, CARD MRI, Santa Rosa City Laguna, and the Office of Senator Pia Cayetano. The SDGs and Futures Caravan reached institutions in Bicol, Aklan, and Siargao, sharing evidence-based research with state universities and colleges nationwide. Public Management Today, GSPDM's monthly publication, was launched to bridge theory and practice in public management. For the first time, DAP-GSPDM participated in the 24th United Nations Committee of Experts on Public Administration session in New York. The MPM Global Lecture Series brought international perspectives to Filipino scholars with inaugural lectures from Professor Masao Kikuchi of Meiji University, Japan. The House of Representatives and Senate recognized DAP-GSPDM's contribution to governance, designating the second week of June as Public Administration Week. GSPDM embarked on its formal journey towards ISO 21001-2018 certification and international accreditation, a milestone years in the making. A series of workshops equipped staff with quality assurance standards, educational organization management system principles, and documentation requirements. In the first half of 2025, GSPDM celebrated hundreds of graduates across its degree and certificate programs. As GSPDM moves forward, it remains steadfast in its vision of building futures-ready communities through excellence in public management education, research, and extension. With Dangal, Galing, and Tatag as its guiding principles, the GSPDM continues to catalyze transformative change, one co-learner, one partnership, one community at a time.
Wow! And that was a year to remember, a glimpse of how 2025 became a defining chapter for DAP-GSPDM. These accomplishments were made possible by the passion of our faculty and staff, the trust of our partners, and the continued excellence of our co-learners and alumni. each one helping move public service forward in real and lasting ways.
And with that, allow us to say thank you for your presence and your generous attention throughout the day. It has been our honor to be with you for this colloquium. On behalf of the organizing team, thank you very much. Once again, I am Kent Alaman Cadalin.
And I am Andrea Francesca Camago.
Thank you and Hiraya Manawari. To carry us into the next part of the program, we are pleased to turn the floor over again to our host for the fellowship night. Please join us in welcoming Mr. J. Chan Marquez.
Thank you very much. All right, we had a healthy, rich conversation today about weaving sustainable futures. And now, moving forward, we'd like to recognize first the authors of our knowledge products. And now we'd like to call Dean Lizan once again to help us in giving out the award certificates to our authors for knowledge products. Dean. Good afternoon, ma'am, our dear Dean. All right, first up, we'd like to call on our first awardee, Dr. Monina M. Bukat. Good afternoon, Dr. Monina M. Bukat. Thank you very much. May we ask Dr. Lily Domingo and Dr. Chita Pales to please go up the stage to help us in giving out the award. All right, now next up, we'd like to call Dr. Rodora V. Azanza. Thank you very much, Dr. Rodora V. Azanza. Thank you, Doctor. Next up, we'd like to call on Mr. Jet Renz R. Ferrer. Mr. Jet Renz R. Ferrer. Thank you very much. One of the authors of our knowledge products, Mr. Jet Renz R. Ferrer. Next up, we'd like to call on Assistant Regional Director, Maria Teresa J. Allen. Thank you, ma'am. We'd like to call on our next one. A big warm round of applause for Mr. Ryson D. Yes. Another warm round of applause for all our authors of knowledge products, of our knowledge products. Thank you very much for your service. Thank you, Dean Lizan. Please do kindly remain on stage. We will now be giving out plaques of appreciation. First up, we'd like to call Dr. Maria Oliva Domingo, Supervising Fellow, DAP-GSPDM, to receive a plaque of appreciation. Thank you, Doctor. Let's give a warm round of applause for our next awardee for a plaque of appreciation. A warm round of applause for Dr. Proserpina Tapales, Supervising Fellow, DAP-GSPDM. Thank you, ma'am. Both are Supervising Fellows for DAP-GSPDM Research and Publications Program. All right, now we would like to take a quick break before we have our dinner and before we proceed with our fellowship night, wherein we'll be giving out some prizes during our fellowship night. We'll be having games and some singing for tonight. Please do take a quick break right now and freshen up, everybody. Again, we will be preparing for our dinner in a very short while. Thank you very much.